This day in sports history. And welcome back. It's March 19th, and on this day in sports history, the legend of Michael Jordan grew just a little bit more. Danny Ainge pulled off an incredible mad dash for the win, and there were not one but two historic basketball games played on this day, 11 years apart. All that plus a non-sports fun fact at the end coming your way about jumping the shark, and I'll get going right after this. So in last year's edition of This Dish, I talked about Michael Jordan making his return to the NBA on this day in 1995 after his first retirement and the pursuit of his baseball dream ending. Now, I do not want to dwell on that again. Instead, let's go back 2 years earlier for another Jordan memory. And this one became known as the LaBradford Smith game. So the game on this night was in Chicago, and it was the first of a back-to-back with the Washington Bullets. Jordan, the 9-year vet and two-time NBA champ, was struggling a bit. He could not find the bottom of the basket on this night. Teammate B.J. Armstrong remembers him missing 19 shots in a row. Now that's a bit of an overstatement, but Jordan was misfiring. He finished with 25, but he was 9 of 27 from the field. For the Bullets, LaBradford Smith, their second-year man out of Louisville, was one of those on the long list of the next Jordan. Now, his numbers were not exactly Jordan-esque at this point, but on this night, he did put on a show.
Side fadeaway jumper. Yep. He's got it going, hasn't he? 21. LaBradford Smith. And he's wearing Michael out. Mike, it just bothers Jordan like that when he comes flying after a guy and he shoots that high arcer. And I guess, Mike, now you know what it's like.
Smith hit 15 of the 20 shots he took, and he was a perfect 7 of 7 from the line to score 37 on the night. But the Bulls still won the game 104-99. So the story goes that as the teams were walking off the court afterwards, LaBradford Smith came over to MJ, put his arm around him and said, "Nice game, Mike." Now, according to his teammates, Jordan was pissed in the locker room after the game, saying something to the effect of, "Whatever that guy had tonight, I'm going to have in the first half tomorrow night." Well, the next night, Jordan essentially did just that.
Backs into MJ. Michael for three.
Oh, man, a shot. 12 for 15 from the field.
He hit his first 8 shots from the field, yes. Jordan backing LaBradford Smith. Michael takes it on the turnaround.
Oh.
By the time the horn sounded ending the second quarter, Jordan had 36 on his way to a 47-point night, and he only played 3 quarters, and the Bulls won again, this time by 25. Revenge served up nice and cold. But hang on a minute. Decades later, long after MJ had hung up his Air Jordans for good, a rumor started to swirl that the impetus behind the revenge game was a myth. Several writers asked Jordan about whether Smith had actually put his arm around him and said, "Nice game, Mike." MJ smiled and said, "Nah, I made it up." Well, as the NCAA tournament gets underway today, let's go back to 1981 when Danny Ainge's mad dash gave enhanced meaning to March Madness. Now, this was a Sweet 16 matchup between the number 6 Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the 18th-ranked BYU Cougars. Now, this was the pre-shot clock era and the pre-3-point shot era in college basketball, and the score reflected that. With 20 seconds remaining, the Irish were down 49-48, but they had the ball in the front court.
20 seconds to play. BYU comes out in a man-to-man defense. Ainge on Paxson. 15 seconds to play. Notre Dame has to do something different. Sensational. Chapuka shot with 9 seconds. Notre Dame ahead by 1.
The Cougars called a timeout with 8 seconds to set up a final play, which must have been pretty simple to diagram. Give it to Danny Ainge and get out of the way.
Floor, and there are 8 seconds to go. Ainge against Paxson. 5 seconds. Inside. Ainge scores with 2 seconds. 1 second on the clock. It is all over. It is all over. And the Heroes banner goes to Danny Ainge.
One other big difference from then to today is that at that point, the clock did not stop after a made basket in the final minute of the game. Ainge's 94-foot drive was perfectly timed and executed, and it sent BYU on to the Elite Eight. This year's NCAA tournament will culminate in the Final Four in Indianapolis in a couple of weeks. Well, one of the most significant high school basketball games was played in Indianapolis on this day in 1955, when Oscar Robertson led his high school team to a historic win. This was the 1955 Indiana State Championship game between the Big O's Crispus Attucks team from Indianapolis against Roosevelt High out of Gary. This was the year after the famous Milan versus Muncie game that inspired the movie Hoosiers. In fact, Robertson had been a sophomore in '54 when Crispus Attucks High lost to Milan in the state quarterfinals. Now here in '55, the now high school junior poured in 30 points in a 97-74 rout of Roosevelt. The win was historic because it was the first state championship anywhere in the U.S. for an all-black team playing in an integrated sport. Crispus Attucks High, led by Robertson in his senior year, would come back in '56 and repeat as champions. So that's a pretty nice segue into what happened 11 years later in the men's NCAA tournament championship game. On this day in 1966, Texas Western, now known as the University of Texas El Paso, and the Kentucky Wildcats played for the national title. Texas Western, coached by Don Haskins, featured an all-black starting five against Adolph Rupp's all-white Kentucky starting five, and there were a lot of people paying attention. The Miners took the lead midway through the first half with some pickpocket defense, and they never gave it up.
Tommy Cron picked up in backcourt, moves over the center line on Worsley, and then Bobby Joe Hill takes it away from him and goes for a gimme. Texas Western set Cron up beautifully for that one. And it's 12-9, the Miners. They do the same thing to Dasher, and here's Hill with another gimme. Say now, this looks pretty bad. Kentucky has just gone flat-footed.
They shot 45% from the field for the game and spent a lot of time at the free throw line, hitting 28 of 34. Kentucky did not have a good shooting night, hitting 39% of their shots, and when the game ended, the scoreboard read Texas Western 72, Kentucky 65. And on this day in 1961, golfer Bob Goalby rolled in 8 consecutive birdies to set a new PGA Tour record at the time, playing in the final round of the St. Petersburg Open in Florida. Goalby hopped on the birdie train at the 8th, and he rode it all the way through to the 15th. He was throwing darts at the pins, leaving himself only short putts along the way, and he finished with a 65 to win by 3 shots over Ted Kroll for his 4th win on tour. Goalby's record was equaled 7 times before it was finally broken by Mark Calcavecchia's 9 straight birdies in 2009 at the Canadian Open. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. If you know that the term jump the shark originated from a scene in Happy Days, then you may be interested to know that the concept of the Fonz getting on water skis and then jumping the literal shark originated from Henry Winkler's dad. Winkler was an accomplished water skier, and his dad told him, "Hey, you should try to find a way to work that into the show." Oh, and even though the term jump the shark is supposed to be the point when something begins to decline, Happy Days did another 160 episodes after this one with high ratings. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.